Next one is from Quipedal, and this one is saying, simply put, goofy villains in regards to P5, and in parentheses, almost all of them, and right below, Kamoshida and Third Semester Man are the exceptions. I hear this a lot, as with many of these. What? I get it. What's goofy about a mafia boss who's like blackmailing you? I get like, oh yeah, fat fly man, glutton, whatever.
Yeah.
I wouldn't describe it as goofy.
Because my thing that I say about this, anytime I see this issue brought up, is the shadows are portrayed as pretty over the top. The actual human version of them is played very straight. Always. I think the main reason Kaneshiro gets brought up in that regard is because there isn't screen time of the actual version of him. But like the few times you see him, he's just sitting there in his chair, you know, with his big briefcase of money, you know, takes a picture of you, just being like, hey, so you know, I got this picture. It'd be pretty bad if your school saw it. Think you can get me, I don't know, 3 million yen?
That's the thing. Know, like when people say that P5 has goofy villains, they're just talking about Kaneshiro, which even that I do kind of disagree with, because like, what is Shido goofy? Like, I guess his first outfit's kind of funny when you go to the metaverse, but like,
I know people say like Shido's unrealistic because of how much control he has, and to that I say, look to how much control real politicians have.
He's a
like
he's a caricature. He's
a commentary, and also like, even then, he's not that far off from like some real world tyrants.
No, the way he uses a lot of his rhetoric is very much realistically portrayed in like the overworld. And then when you get to his inner facade, it is very, or not facade, but like his inner self very much is like, yeah, no, I'm going to coast along everyone and steer the ship myself, even if it sinks, and I'll be the last one on top. Like, yeah, it's over the top. He is very evil. Like, I guess you could say comically evil, but it's still pretty grim contextually.
There's also a game where you summon your big JoJo stand and shoot God. Like, there's a bit of over-the-topness inherently the concept of Persona, because, you know, it's not a realistic premise.
Yeah.
And this is just a thing with the shadow concept even in 4, is it's these deep desires being elevated to a higher level, and, you know, taking this whole concept, taking like the deep, you know, crappy parts of the person's heart and really playing them up to show just how much it affects the person, which, you know, in P4 it's kind of a more of a tragic thing, and in P5 it's more of a fuck you thing. So like, I don't know, I just don't get the villains are too cartoony. Also, like, yeah, they said like Kamoshida's an exception. He realize he turns into like giant baby man with big old tongue and a giant, you know, cup of wine with cognitive on in it. Like, there's still a bit of goofiness to that, but it's still played straight enough that it's threatening. Like, it's well done. I just don't, especially the human versions. Like, the human versions are not goofy by any stretch of the imagination.
It's literally an exaggerated caricature of the real horrors of what they're doing.
Yeah.
And also the fact that they argue that third semester villain it does not count implies that both they see Maruku as a villain who he isn't. He's just an antagonist. And that also implies that both that it implies that Shadow Sai is goofy, which she isn't. She's like the absolute opposite of goofy. She's like actually competent and stuff. The only other thing that I could possibly see as goofy is like the way that, obviously, a big thing for this channel, the way that Okumura just kind of sits there and lets his goons do everything, and then when you finally get through all his goons, he just takes one hit to kill, and you're like, well, that was easy.
Well, yeah, but that's also
that's like a little bit goofy,
horrific.
but it makes sense thematically. But I can see how someone would be like, wow, how silly, how comical.
Yeah, this next one, I don't even like. It's not that I don't disagree with it, but I do find it intriguing. From Just Lemrez, third semester content and quote-unquote Day of Reckoning should have swapped places in the game. The battle against the God of Control and its conclusion felt more impactful as an ending than third semester does, making it feel a bit lackluster by the end of it all.
That doesn't really make any sense, because then they would have to postpone everything that happens with Shido leading up to everything that happens with Yaldabaoth until the end of the third semester, and then they bring everything up that happens in third semester with Maruki and Sumi into second semester. At that point, it's not Persona 5 Royal, it's just Persona 5 Remake, and they're just changing the most important parts of the story to better suit a full narrative, rather than here is the original narrative and then here is the extended narrative that tells a slightly different story, but the same story nonetheless.
For me, the way I see this, I kind of look at it through two venues. The first one is, I don't think there are many contexts you could put it. First of all, quite literally what even happens, but like thematically, I think it would be weird forcing Maruki anywhere, like anything of third semester in before like Yaldabaoth. I think it is a very natural progression of one to the other. I will say though, it does make me think about the fact on the other end of like, Yaldabaoth is a very good conclusion to that narrative. And I still think like it works as a perfect end to that story in context of just vanilla P5 and to an extent Royal, which is why it kind of feels weird after third semester when you go back in time essentially, or like everything resets, and then Lavenza's like, by the way, here's your medal for beating up Yaldabaoth 2 months late, but yeah. So like I get it. I don't know if I'd go to the extent of it should have switched places, but I feel like there could have been a more natural way of having that payoff to Yaldabaoth before and then transitioning into Maruki. I feel like that could have been way more natural.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I'd say, there's also, Maruki is still a raising of stakes, because Maruki, I would argue, is noticeably more powerful than Yaldabaoth even.
Well, he's literally Yaldabaoth, but he knows what he's doing.
And he's also not a god. He's like he's just a human who has this power, which makes him like noticeably more villainous is not the word I'm looking for.
He has more like initiative, I guess, because Yaldabaoth very much is made from the will of the people, and Maruki is serving the will of the people, but is someone who can actively make more.
He's consciously making the decision to do what he's doing, rather than Yaldabaoth, who's just kind of doing it because that's what it does as a god.
Yaldabaoth is more of a force of nature.
There's also something I don't think enough people appreciate, or in the case of a lot of Akechi fuckers didn't even realize, is that Maruki has the power to raise the fucking dead. Yeah,
I've seen many people say that's not what happens, but play third semester again. It tells you outright that it's not cognitions. They are real human beings that he straight up brings back to life in this reality. Which is horrific.
That's scary.
Oh man.
He's so strong. Man, you have so much power in Persona, Adam. You're just so strong.
So strong. From Toxicity, this one hurts me on a fundamental level. Kind of going back to something we said before. The group does not feel like friends. They are all a-holes to each other. It's explicitly said they go their own separate ways after P5. They don't feel like a friend group. They feel like stereotypes interacting with each other. Quote-unquote, I'm the idiot. Quote-unquote, I'm pretty. Quote-unquote, art, and so on.
Wrong. Absolutely incorrect. First of all, we already talked about this. They are absolutely friends. They have so much interaction with each other, both including and excluding Joker. Second, they go their separate ways because they have their own lives to lead. Joker does not live in Tokyo. He lives in some other part of Japan. He has to go back once his parole is over. And Haru and Haru and Makoto have to go to college because they want to get a higher education, so they have to go somewhere else as well. Also, play Strikers. They come back. They talk about the fact that they have constantly texted between each other in the break between Vanilla and Strikers trying to organize this summer together. Like, there is just...
He couldn't pay his phone bill.
Yeah, no, not Yusuke, but that's different.
I want to note really quick. I don't think I've seen another one of these posts underneath my tweet that literally did get ratioed. Like, it got like 30-something likes, and then Lonely Goomba came in saying, yeah, it's actually one of the best handled friend groups of any game. Yeah, and like doubled the like count. So like, that doesn't inherently mean they're wrong, but they are.
Also, I was going to say, talking about Yusuke just reminds me, I believe this was in our first Royal discussion, Adam. My favorite way of describing that end part of Royal is every character explaining why they're not going to talk to Yusuke again.
Yeah! It's so...
I love this.
I love that. Like, how do you interpret that as, yeah, they all just left each other because they don't care about each other? It's like, no, they have lives. They have responsibilities. They need to...
leaving... They're, like, 2 of them are leaving high school. Like, that's a point where you're going... Even if you can still be friends with them, you still have to diverge a bit. Like, you know... They already had their own goals. This is just them especially doubling down on it. Joker was already going to leave no matter what, you know, and Mona was going to go with him. Like,
that's like saying the group in Persona 4 aren't friends because you and Rise leave
Morgana
at the end and go back to they go back to the, I guess, the city as opposed to the country. I don't know where they're supposed to be living, but like the rest of them stay in the country.
Every character who has to leave at the end of a series just goes to the same town that Dipper and Mabel went back to in Gravity Falls.
Yeah,
they all just go back there.
They're going back to California.
Yeah, but like, I don't know, also, they're all stereotypes. Fucking get out of here.
I love boiling it down to who is I'm Pretty supposed to be?
I guess On.
That's supposed to be On because the first one's Ryuji and the second one is the third one is Yusuke. So I'm Pretty would be On. Also, if that's the case, what is Makoto's stereotype? Because she does not have a stereotype. She is such a complex character.
Smart girl.
She obviously like she's a smart girl, but she's also like really tough and strong. She has like that cute side to her with the panda stuff. She's like an outcast, but despite being revered, she's an outcast. Because she doesn't have many friends.
I don't know.
She's scared of ghosts, which is a complete 180
Levi.
of other parts of her character.
Listen. All I'm saying is Akechi is basically just daddy issues, the character. Okay? You don't need to pretend anymore.
Not to flip to another fandom that doesn't understand character writing, but like this just reminds me... spoilers from My Little Pony. This just reminds me of an MLP when Twilight became a princess and everyone's like, but she won't be the socially awkward bookworm anymore. And I'm like, that's such a basic understanding of her core archetype that completely ignores every other bit of character development she got through the first seasons. Anyway.
You know, let's move on to the next one. Before we have an aneurysm as a group. From Wayne's Ash, I think the intro and Kamoshida's arc don't really set the tone for the rest of the story well. To me, that is the darkest part of the story in P5, at least until you get to third semester. I've noticed the trend of people comparing first and third semester, the first palace and third semester as the peaks. Like, there's a ton of dark crap happening throughout. Kamoshida's arc feels very grounded, despite the obvious supernatural elements. And they just go on praising Kamoshida's palace. I would still say the game
it's the same thing that we already discussed in that first bit where we had the generalizations, where people are just saying like the first arc is really good and the last arc is really good and everything else in the middle is boring because it's not as good. But that's just not how a story works.
You
have to have rising tension. You can't just have everything be better than the last thing.
A roller coaster, not a train.
I would say I actually do have a rationale for the mindset of the tonal difference, which is before Kamoshida's palace, there isn't any like spark of hope for a lot of people because that's what the fantasies are blatantly trying to be. So there is more optimism in that world and it's less dour, and they actually have senses of hope of actually having friends that they can communicate with and like help solve each other's issues, and knowing that they don't have to be oppressed by forces like that. It is a very blatant thing. That's why the first first palace feels so oppressive, is because you were still climbing out to get to a point where you can fight back. And once you get that, It's literally you're free. You. Ah! It's good.
I don't know. I just don't really get that. Like, I mean, I brought it up in our Palace ranking that I think the main reason Cheetah is one of the villains people say is the best is partly because he's the most easy to understand villain because he's a type of person that more people have interacted with.
Mhm.
Like, people have, like, I feel like most people at some point in their life, whether it's online or IRL, has interacted with someone who's a blatant creep like that. And even if you haven't, you've met a gym teacher. You know, like, you've
Yeah,
been to
same
school.
thing.
So, like, there's more of a grounded thing there. Like, I get that. Like, I get why people especially love Kamoshida in that regard. But that doesn't change the fact that, like, the evils of a character like Madarame, Kaneshiro, or any other villain, those evils also exist in the world. And oftentimes, as the game kind of portrays, especially with Shido, they're evils that you typically sometimes don't even notice that you're being affected by until they very start hurting.
Oh boy. You know, I already started looking at the next one. I'm starting to feel the rage bubbling up a little.
Oh yeah.
From Mirth Mouser, you asked, so I'm just gonna say it. Kasumi was a mistake. Nearly everything about her contradicts P5's original themes. From her design to her personality, she's a perfect girl that is idolized by everyone around her. She has no place in a story about the outcasts of society. What?
That is okay. Listen. That is 100% absolutely correct for Kasumi. It does not have any effect on the actual character being discussed here, who is Sumire.
Well, the
Kasumi,
irony...
like the character that is Kasumi, quote unquote, absolutely does not mesh with the desires of what Persona 5's story is trying to be. But because Kasumi exists in the way that she exists as an overlap of what was previously Sumire, that just highlights Sumire's character more.
Well,
I agree with this statement only to absolutely ratio it with a disagree.
Well, the thing is, like, it is very much, they're saying she's a perfect girl that's idolized by everyone. No, she is literally someone who, because of her own trauma, wants to be her sister, who she views as that perfect person. And the game quite literally goes out of its way, as other people said, where they're like, oh yeah, she actually isn't good enough. People saying she can't live up to what her actual sister, what the real Kasumi was doing. Because at that time she wasn't as skilled or whatever in gymnasts or whatever. It's... she's a...
Also, what do you mean design and personality? She wears black and red. That is Persona 5.
Yeah, that's Joker. She's literally just female Joker. At one point, actually, I did want to bring this up at some point in the video. So her codename is Violet. Her beta codename was Clown, which is just Joker, but different. Like, they are clearly just being like, okay, this is just Joker again. This is Joker 2. Why? You liked him the first time, now she's Joker with Booba, but you don't like her?
I just don't get as well, like, just... Yeah, also, yeah, she's blatantly not perfect. And, like, the game shows that, yeah, the school's getting, you know, really short-tempered with her because she's not living up to expectations. Her confidant is about her trying to be better at gymnastics so she can live up to those expectations.
She's extremely insecure.
I'm pretty sure... I do have a theory, though. This person didn't do her confidant, got the vanilla, and then called it quits.
Oh my gosh. On another note about Kasumi, from Bonk Boy Games, in all caps, why didn't Kasumi join the party in Shido's palace? That's just lazy writing!
Because,
Lazy writing to shove her in.
Yeah, she literally states, she's like, I'm here to help, but I still don't agree with what you're doing, so I'm a bounce. Like, she literally just outright states that, which makes total sense. Like,
palace,
sorry, that's what I meant.
With Shido's palace, she more specifically offers her help, and Mona says, like, I don't know, we're kind of going into the big bad's territory, so it might be a bit worrying, which you could argue is kind of a weird cop-out, because, like, she somehow survived being at a max-level palace.
Well, they didn't even know what that was. Or I guess, I don't know. Sorry.
But even then, there is still a reason to be worried about going into the palace of the guy who actually knows what cognitive science is, because that's definitely a thing to be worried about. On top of that, what role does Kasumi have in that palace? The palace where every other character arc kind of comes together. Okay, we're going to add Kasumi. She's not really going to get a conclusion to her character arc because she's not even Sumire yet.
Like
So she
Yeah, if they had put her in Shido's palace, it would have felt very weird. There are two ways that they could have handled it, and they both would have been incorrect. They either don't give her an arc and wait to give her an arc in the actual palace where she gets an arc, which at that point she's just in the party to be used, or they give her an arc in Shido's palace, and it kind of just overshadows both Akechi's, like the end of Akechi's arc, and also like the conclusion of everyone else's arc, simultaneously.
You are trying to
there isn't
introduce
really
a new party member at the most important part of the plot for really no proper reason. Like, there isn't really a reason for them to bring her. Not to mention,
Yeah, she wouldn't bring anything to the infiltration of Shido's palace. The one thing I could possibly see is that she could act as like another sexy alongside An when they're trying to seduce that one guy.
Man, that's not really what her character arc was ever about.
Yeah,
so
it's like it absolutely does not fit. Like,
it's
it's the closest thing that could possibly fit her, because she's not like tough like Makoto, and she's not a hacker girl like Futaba. Like, she doesn't have any other kind of way to get, or she's not like a high society like Haru. She doesn't really have any other way to get in except her limited sex appeal that she has as a dancer, as a ribbon dancer. But even then, it would not make sense.
Yeah, on top of that, like, fucking, you're rewriting a major part of you're not just having to rewrite Shido's palace. You're also having to rewrite tons of dialogue in depths, and she has no connection to any other villain prior to this point in the game, except I guess she knew Kamoshida, and I don't know, she had 2 conversations with Akechi total. Like, she by far, even though she has conversations with him about the Phantom Thieves, she has probably the least connection to Akechi out of any of the thieves.
Yeah.
So, she also has very little connection with Shido, because she does not know that Shido is the one. Like, because she only really knows Joker through school and not really through like his trauma and through the Phantom Thieves. Going into the palace, she would have to be like just filled in entirely on Joker's entire backstory and then his whole thing with Shido. I feel like it would be really overwhelming for her to just like get all of this information instead of the rest of the characters who get it gradually. Even Haru suffers from it a little bit because she comes in right at the end. She only gets her dad's palace and then Sai's palace to kind of get that information, which is still a really long time. That's 2 whole palaces.
I feel like to put it succinctly, it would be really forced and dumb.
There's just no point, because the reason it just doesn't make sense to put her in at that part of the game. Because like, yeah, sure, it'd be cool, have your 9th party member that uses Bless, sure, but like, why? Like, I don't need it. Like, just introduce her at the end. And also, because this is another thing I've seen. A lot of people being like, I was just gonna say, the trailers imply that she's in more of the game. They really don't. They only ever showed her to Sai's Palace and 3rd semester, which is where she appears in the final game.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's just...
Anyway, continue with your friggin' tweets.
From Jenny, the game takes forever to get going, and there's so much unused content in Royal that could have made the game even better. Now...
Please play Persona 4.
1... I 100% disagree on the game taking forever to get going. Kamoshida's arc already has been stated earlier. Was phenomenal. Okay. Everyone has said it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I actually have a very good benchmark for how, quote-unquote, long it takes for the game to get going. Because to me, the point where you could say a Persona game starts getting going is once you actually get to start fighting. At least to me. And in P3, it's like... P3 and 4, it's like 2 hours. P5 and I streamed it, so I have a proper timetable for it. In less than an hour, I had Arsene.
I mean, if you want to speak in technicals, you can already fight with Arsene 30 seconds into the game.
That too. There's also just the incredible prologue that really gives you like this taste of what the thieves are.
It gives you something to look forward to.
mean,
I feel
yeah,
like this is just another way of complaining about how long the tutorial is. I feel like getting going, quote unquote, is I want to be able to play the game and not have to be handheld through every single new
and a
room
lot
that
of
I walk into.
cutscenes. A lot of cutscenes, sure, but again, that's just JRPGs. They have a lot of mechanics.
The part of this I did want to address more so is one thing I've seen is respect to my boy 5's, who like posts a lot of like unused content, stuff like that implemented in the game. Cool stuff, like great work from him. But people see that stuff and they go, "This wasn't in the game. Wow, that's so bad and lazy. Why didn't they do this? That sucks." And like that stuff is great, but one, there is a reason why things can be cut, whether it's for simplifying it or not, like making the game feel too bloated or something. And on top of that, just because something could have been in the game and wasn't, isn't inherently like it's not always a real criticism.
It's not a valid criticism to say this thing wasn't in the game, therefore the game is bad because it was not in it. Because technically, like realistically, we shouldn't have been able to see that.
Yeah, it's
so when you find out about it and then you go, okay, the game isn't as good because it didn't have this thing in it that was really cool and I wanted it. That's not a valid criticism of the game because, we weren't supposed to know what that was.
Yeah,
you can't criticize a game based on something that you should know exists.
Yeah, stuff like, and also stuff gets. This is just a thing. Video games stuff gets left on the cutting room floor constantly because just stuff doesn't really need to be there. Like I actually just pulled it up, his playlist of all the unused events from 5's. 109 events, but like I scroll through a couple of these and some of them are kind of neat. A lot of them are like very minor, like little bits of dialogue or whatever, but some of them are like unused karaoke event. It's like, all right, what plot purpose does that have? Like why bother? There's like there was going to be a flashback that showed how Yusuke's mom died, but just the description from Madarame's fine.
They didn't add the Akechi sex scene.
What do you mean I can't turn Akechi into a rat in Shido's palace? What? The bad game, 6 out of 10 at the most.
Yeah, it's like I just gotta scroll through these, and it's just kind of like, I mean, yeah, there's something like some of them are kind of neat, like they're neat novelties, and I'm glad they're in the files just so we can actually see them. But some of them are just kind of like, I don't know, friggin' just why do I need this? Like,
yeah, I feel like at that point, if we could assume that every single thing that was cut was added into the game, I feel like the complaints would then be there's too much stuff that's not story related going on. I want to actually get to the story, not see 16 different karaoke events. Which, you gotta pick the lesser of two evils, man. You can't just.
Yeah, and like there was like a scene which was going to be like on spying on Joker and like Ryuji, and I'm like, well, that already happens in the game. I don't need to see that. I'd say the only thing that's unused that I do think is unfortunate. Oh yeah, there's also like an unused third awakening for Akechi, which the one in the final game's better, and just stuff like that. There's like a scene where like all the adult confidants would have met up, which would have been neat, but again, why, stuff like that. So it's like, sure, this is neat, but I don't need it. And I don't know, it's trimming the fat, because there's in a game this big, there's going to be fat to trim, and they did a fantastic job. Like, I can't think of a single hangout scene in the game that is unrelated to story, except I guess Kichijoji, but that's a big enough area that it warrants that.
This next one from OK Consumer, I don't think this one requires like a massive tangent or anything, because there's a pretty quick answer to it, but the game forcefully puts the entire cast together. For example, the Hawaii trip, they forcefully put Yusuke in the Shujin main group. There aren't many scenes with a few of them, like in P4G, just whatever. That first point of, like, I guess Hawaii specifically, where you have Yusuke there and you have Kasumi, like, just kind of popping up, which Kasumi makes more sense. With Yusuke showing up, it's just funny. It's funny. Yeah. It's a contrivance, but it's entertaining, and it gets the group there to hang out together.
There's nothing funnier than them just chilling in Hawaii and this dude just strolling up like nothing's amiss. Just like,
yeah.
Like it's one of my favorite bits of comedy in the game. And on top of that, like, I don't know.
It also it fits Yusuke's character perfectly, where he seems like he is the most just like not affluent is not the word I'm looking for. He seems like he's the most like well put together. He's very sophisticated, kind of like Haru in a sense.
Psych.
But in reality, he's a complete mess, and everything that he does is just entirely comedic. Like, oh, we were going to LA, but I have really bad luck, so it was raining, and now we're here in Hawaii.
I also love as well, like, also, yeah, if they force the whole group together, why would Futaba and Mona not show up? Like, yeah, it's not like everyone.
Futaba was walking home and she accidentally fell into Hawaii.
Oh no!
And also, a lot of Hawaii is not even the whole group hanging out together. There's like, you know, because there's the scene where you go on the date. I'm pretty sure, isn't the Kasumi scene just Joker and Kasumi in the gift shop? And
Ryuji and Yusuke are there, I think, but
I think isn't that I remember that being a different scene that happens first.
You
go into the gift shop with them, and then they leave, and then you find Kasumi.
You split up. Yeah, you kind of split up to look for stuff. Yeah, and then like Sumi shows up and spooks you. So
basically, it's inoffensive. If you dislike it, that's fine. It's a little it's a little contrived, but it's nothing too bad. From Augustin25. The game itself is not bad, however, Atlus' original idea of breaking the Persona formula and making it about a road trip had more to it than what we have. One, play Persona 5 Strikers. Two, that's another case of this thing that we didn't get that we could have gotten is better. But again, like, that's even worse than that because that's just a concept. We don't even have, like, the evidence of what it actually was. Like, I guess if you say it's more interesting, sure, but that doesn't take away from what this is or the actual execution of the game. And
even then, I still say P5 deviates pretty well from other Persona stories.
Yeah. I'd say they each feel pretty distinct in their own right. From Kyle Lambert, he says, Raul should have been a Persona you could get in third semester instead of being locked behind DLC. Would have been a neat way to signify Ren's rejection of the false reality given to him, like with the rest of the third tier Personas.
Raul is just Arsene. They are the same person. It has the same, like it doesn't add to the significance of Arsene by having Joker have Raul or Arsene because they are the same person. And that is yes, that's it. Thank you.
I like the idea of a third awakening in the plot. It's not super necessary, I don't think. Like, I
think maybe this. I honestly think it might stem from just the fact that Narukami gets them, and I don't know if what happens in P3. Please don't spoil me because I haven't got that far. I know that there is obviously there's like other Orpheuses because I have the DLC for Royal, so I know what all the personas are. But I can see where they're coming from. Where they're like, it would have been nice if Joker also got to ascend, but Joker does not have a tier 2.
He does.
Denial technically is, but he doesn't have like one that is in between Raul and Arsene. Like the rest of them have the one that's between their other ones.
Like that's one where it's another case of thing not in the game. I think would be cool in the game, which is fine. What we did get in third semester, I don't even mind. I'm not, like, begging for it because what we did get is out of this world in quality.
Yeah.
Yes.
Would have been neat, but not necessary.
On the flip side of a more positive one like that, from Mike the Guy 3333333, I think that P5R's existence is super scummy along with the huge heap of DLC along with it. I agree with the DLC. What...
yeah.
Do you just...
But the game isn't scummy because it's just... they did it with 3 and they did it with 4. Why wouldn't they do it again with 5?
The scumminess of adding, I don't know, 30 hours of content, new story, overhauled gameplay. Like, if this was just meant to be a cash grab, they put a lot of effort into it for a cash grab that didn't even do that well in Japan.
Once again, would pay $60 for Persona 5 Tycoon Simulator.
Oh my gosh.
I just don't see how it's scummy. It's very upfront about what it is as well. Like, it's not trying to trick you.
Yeah, they're just those people, man. From Daveski, this is a name I recognize, and this is a big barrage. half of the main team are weak/bad characters. 5 suffers
Lol.
from the most anime tropes.
Lies.
Has the weakest villains in the series, except Maruki, who is one of the best. Story is kind of mid. After their arcs, some teammates are kind of just there, and in all caps, Morgana!
Okay. So we don't have time to dissect all that. to quote, I was about to say Maruki, John Mulaney, they're the same person. It's fine.
I want to note something they also said below. FES and Golden didn't add in a new playable character, so I don't know why they did it with Royal. It's just too much.
Because Royal's better.
It's cool. That's a cool addition.
Also, FES did add a new character. Her name was Metis, and you probably forgot her because she's unimportant. She's in the answer. Like, yeah, they literally did.
I don't... You know...
And Portable technically added a new playable character because there's a new protagonist.
There might be like a small little handful of people who will see this and go, they're running from the question, they can't answer it, or the claim. I don't think it's worth arguing that one for our own sanity because it's too easy.
My Discord just completely disagreed with that entire statement. That from the second that you started saying that tweet to the second that you ended it, I was not even in the call. It kicked me out of the call on its own, and then I joined back in, and the last thing I heard was Morgana.
Yeah, it is. It is painful. Let's move.
Oh, yeah.
It's just incorrect.
I was just gonna say, major thing, most anime tropes. Play Persona 4. Persona 4.
Yeah, I was gonna say the exact same thing.
Again, we like Persona 4. But...
Next one.
From Lonely Goomba, the life sim stuff outside of the palaces generally serve to improve your combat. That's generally the core reason to do anything. But they take up so much time to the extent that that it feels like only a fraction of playtime is actually used benefiting from those abilities you earn.
Pretty long.
Basically, they're saying that the time you spend doing the social stuff doesn't match up to the actual, like, payoff of it. And I kind of agree, but I don't think it's inherently a bad thing, because, like, it is small bonuses you get for, like, as a little bonus on top of you getting the fusion burst, you getting your skills up so you can interact with more people, and the main big thing, seeing the different character arcs and getting more of that plot and stuff, is the main selling point.
Also from a purely gameplay perspective, if you're like a gameplay purist, at least doing the party ones gets you tier 2s for your party members.
Yeah, but most of the Confidant abilities aren't going to completely shake your world in terms of how they change the gameplay. Because, like, at best, I guess, like, the rank 10 for Kawakami is pretty good. And getting party member switching from Hifumi is really useful. But that's about, like, the peak of it. It doesn't need to be world-shattering, in my opinion.
They're mostly small bonuses that compound slowly throughout the game.
Yeah.
And on top of that, like, I don't know, you're still getting that incredible plot, and I wouldn't say there's not enough time to use those abilities, because, like, not only, like I said, palaces are pretty long, but also, you know, there are still, like, other challenges. You know, there's still, like, the if you want, like, that challenge, there's the Velvet Room twin challenges that you can do. You know, it's like, if you really want to test your skill, that's kind of the one place where you can in this game, because otherwise it's really easy.
Yeah.
And there's also, I guess maybe some people, like, I don't want to speak for this tweeter in particular, but, you know, if you're just not playing the game optimally, sometimes it feels like getting those confidants is like a really arduous task, because you're not walking around with the right personas, you aren't getting the correct answers. So you aren't getting those points when you need them, and you're having to put in extra effort to spend time with them that's not directly in a confidant.
Being focused on what makes the game function best will better optimize your time.
Yeah.
From Delar? I got a funny chicken PFP. I will note the first part as just a small thing. It feels like a mistake that Haru joins the game, or joins so late in the game due to the Fan of Thieves being so close-knit, which I'm at least glad they admit them feeling close-knit. it's a good relief. But then furthermore, I feel like Shido should have been the final boss instead of the Grail, as Shido better represents the concept of human nature and the thieves, the concept of human nature and the evils it can be. Meanwhile, the Grail being a greater evil and brainwashing people feels out of place in a story which has the heroes fighting against human characters and society as a whole. They kind of answered their own question there. Alright, not question, but yeah. It is about society as a whole. That's what Yaldabaoth represents.
Yeah, because Yaldabaoth, you're still basically fighting society. You're still fighting people in society. Like, you literally have to... when the first time you fight the Grail, you can't beat it specifically because people keep feeding it and keep wanting it to just be like, I don't want to think, I just want to stay in this prison and then die. That's basically people's what the quote unquote what the people want.
I think the best way to put it is, before that point, you're fighting a collection of antagonists who are keeping people down and putting them in a place of, I guess, being contained in the world into whatever they want their roles to be. While after that point, you are fighting the thing that is the embodiment of wanting to stay down as long as it's comfortable.
Yeah.
As long as you don't have to make decisions that are harmful.
I do kind of agree with the Haru statement where... No, I don't feel like it feels like a mistake, as they put it, that Haru joined so late. But the Phantom Thieves are at that point so close-knit that she kind of feels a little bit alienated in the group. I do agree that she does suffer from alienation a little bit because she is joining in so late. However, it's different. Like, Persona 5 is not the same as other Persona games where the characters are introduced a lot earlier. Like, I would say, because I've been playing P3, like, a lot of the characters that eventually join the party in P3 are introduced a lot earlier into the game. They have very little scenes, but then eventually they get put into the party. The same with P4, like, Naoto is there a lot, even though Naoto is the last party member to join.
Yeah.
So Naoto gets to experience a lot of the actual story before joining the team, whereas in Persona 5, each character that joins the party kind of gets introduced and then joins the party. So Haru does suffer from the fact that she does not get that much characterization before she joins the party.
I do think, though, in terms of joining when they're so close-knit, I think the way they kind of do get around that is the point where she joins is the part where they're more fragmented because of the fight.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel like she's joining this super tightly knit group. She's kind of joining as an outsider who's able to specifically help Mona reconnect with his friends, and in doing so is also connecting with So I think it works really well.
Archer Slam Band mentions the scene with the gay stereotypes. It's pretty ridiculous that even in 2017 and 2020 that it's seen as acceptable. Yes. They also said poor Ryuji.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just we don't need to we don't need to go on about why it's so bad. It's just don't.
Royal English translation made it a bit better, but it's still far from ideal.
Like it's not the most egregious thing ever done, even in the series, but it's not good.
It's in Royal. It's not fixed. It's just different. I would definitely argue that what they did in Royal with that one specific scene is better. I do appreciate it more than the one that we got in Vanilla Royal, but it's still bad.
It's a band-aid fix when the correct solution was remove it. It's point.
Yeah.
Anyway.
From Hardison 009. The Fortune Teller Confidant is an effing waste of time and energy, yet she is easily encountered. Yet the Politician Confidant is one of the most useful ones. I only found out via a guide. It's effing bollocks how the Confidants are handled.
I'm assuming that they're talking about
Chihaya and Yoshida.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call Chihaya a waste of time. One, real quick, good story. Basically, all of them have pretty good stories for the Confidants. Two, she does have one of the most powerful abilities in the game.
Yeah. Hers is really good.
She can literally cause you to boost all of your Confidants with a small fee.
I'm surprised that they locked it. I mean, I understand why they probably locked it behind a Confidant in retrospect, actually. Because everything that she kind of does, in P3 specifically, which I've been playing, the shrine just has it, and it's just there from the beginning of the game.
It's like
so yeah, it is, you know, the fact that they locked it behind something is kind of yeah.
On top of that, it's not like it's hard to find Yoshida. There's a required cutscene where you have to run past him giving a speech. He's there, you know, he's there any night you walk past there at times. Like,
I guess it might be because that part of the station, like that part of Shibuya, is not somewhere that you would go often unless you're doing the lottery every time. And personally, in my experience, I did not do the lottery. Like, the only time I went to Shibuya is when I'm going to the streets or the station, not that transition area in between.
No, I have a rebuttal to that one. It's called every time you hover over where it shows what confidant you have, there's a little grayed out icon that says speech giving man.
Yeah.
Maybe you should talk to them because it's another confidant.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not that hard to find. And then he says, like, go to the beef bowl shop, and, you know, with very minimal exploring, you can find that job that you can pick up, you know. And that's also kind of the bit of the game where, like, a lot of, like, those conversations when walking to school are like, hey, we get a part-time job. It's fun.
Ryuji takes you to that beef bowl shop, and I know because of my folder of many Ryuji reactions, one of them is him in that beef bowl shop, where he's got the bowl in his hands, and he's looking over at Ren Piss, and then he puts the bowl, and then he puts the bowl down.
From
hard to find. Yeah, only one that's like even remotely hard to find, I'd say, is like Shinya, and even then the game tells you about him. You just kind of have to do some exploring.
Yeah, like in my first playthrough, that's the only one I really missed, where it was like, oh yeah, I guess there was this mission to do. I didn't read a text. Whoops.
I could also argue that maybe Hifumi is a little bit hidden because she's not in like a main, like the rest of the confidants are in a main map area that you would go, whereas she's in that church, and the only reason that you would go to that church is to see her. So if you aren't going out of your way to go to that church, then you don't see her anywhere else, except in that one cutscene at the bookstore.
I guess. Yeah, from Uvant Kebab, what a name. They start with a long-winded thing about DLC, Royal should have been DLC, blah, blah, blah.
And prices, yeah.
Yeah. The thing I do find more interesting to note, though, they go, also, Shido wasn't as good as people say, and power scaling is effed as you go from fight this beefcake politician to fight God. I don't think they... I think it's a little more... It's not exactly that.
Yeah.
It's not like you're fighting Shido in a fist fight in the broad daylight of Tokyo. You're fighting.
Could you imagine if that was the climax?
That'd be incredible,
dude. I love Yakuza.
I mean, that's their kinda.
Yeah, that's the real power scaling. Why was that the final fight? But like, it's the manifestation of someone who, one, thinks they're literally chosen by God, and two, is one of the most powerful people in the country, and has the ego to fuel it, and is literally being essentially a chosen vessel by the God you're about to fight. So their inner self is one of the most threatening forces you could probably encounter in the context of what the metaverse is.
On top of that, the game very immediately makes it clear, it very immediately makes it clear, like, as soon as you change Shido's heart, you're like, hey, why does nobody care? And that perfectly leads into the final arc. Well, air quotes, final arc.
Good.
Man, I wanna fight Shido in broad daylight at the Tokyo Scramble in the middle of the street, and everyone's just like, why is this kid fighting the next prime minister? And they're just punching each other.
From Priya the Pluff.
Dude, I love Yakuza 7.
From Priya the Pluff, there's a more innocent response, finally giving us a little chill one. It's a PlayStation exclusive. It should be out for other platforms, then it would be way more popular.
Correct.
I mean, yeah,
it's not
a video game.
It is not a criticism of the game in the slightest, but it is correct.
No, it would probably get people to buy it more. I don't know if that affects specifically the popularity.
He's already in Smash.
Absolutely not. It's extremely popular. Like, Persona 5... Okay, This is a hot take. Persona 5 did what Fire Emblem Awakening did to Fire Emblem. That's what Persona 5 did to Persona. Honest to God.
I would actually argue.
I had no idea what Persona was before 5. Like, it didn't bring back the series like Awakening did, but it brought it into like this like huge mainstream.
I would actually flip that. I would say Persona 4 is probably the closer equivalent to Awakening. Persona 5 is probably closer to Three Houses, which actually was a massive, like, constant
I can
social
see
thing.
that, because so many people played Three Houses, but it's like, you know, it's just like it's the popular one, but it's not like the savior one. Like,
Awakening was a love game that brought the series into a more mainstream light and kind of breathed life back into it. But Three Houses, like P5, was just a phenomenon.
I mean, this is the sort of thing we won't truly know until like hindsight happens and we're a few more games into the series, which, you know, is like 2 decades. But like, I truly believe that when it's all like, as this progresses and gets bigger, I think Persona 5 will be remembered as the Final Fantasy VII of the Persona series, of the iconic, partly because it's the one in Smash Bros.
Yeah, that's the same with how Fire Emblem Awakening is to Fire Emblem now. Like before Awakening, it was probably Fire Emblem 7 on GBA, if you're not counting the Japanese releases. But now it's like Awakening is the Final Fantasy 7 of Fire Emblem, just like Persona 5 is the Final Fantasy. Persona 5 is the Final Fantasy 7.
Yeah, there's also like, I would love it if Atlus would have a game on Steam, on Switch, whatever. But also, even if that never happens, console exclusives are just that's just the nature of the video game market. You just kind of sometimes you just gotta suck it up and realize, I can't play this on my preferred console.
Yeah, like Ratchet and Clank
like if they would
have more sales on Xbox, I guess, if it was also there, but I'm not gonna screech about it.
Yeah.
I feel like if they were to put it on, like, the thing that people are clamoring for specifically is for it to be on the Switch, which I can understand, because if it runs on the PS3, it could probably run, like, even just if they just put vanilla P5 on the PS3, on the Nintendo Switch, because it runs on PS3, it can probably run just fine on Switch.
Granted.
But if they do put it on Switch, I would rather than put Persona 5 portable on the Switch rather than just porting Persona 5. I don't want to have to buy the same game. Like, I already own Persona 5, including Royal and Persona 5. I already own that game 7 times. I don't want to have to buy it again just to be able to play it portably.
I would say you also have to think about the fact that I can't confirm this because I haven't properly played through it yet. Mm-hmm. But people have even been saying that Nocturne HD kind of chugs on the Switch. Do you really want Persona 5, especially Royal, on that system?
I mean, here's the thing. Atlus ports are a mixed bag because Golden on Steam is pretty fine, especially after a patch, whereas Nocturne is just kind of
we'll see.
Kind of I think I like to think Atlus would give their best-selling game to a studio with a bit more competency.
Let's hope. Sliding along from Rune Pops. Oh boy, we're getting to this part. P5 got the worst, most inconsistent BS story, and I hate how they set up really serious ideas and do literally nothing with them. And while P5 looks and feels the best out of any Persona game, hands down, the gameplay is so brain-dead easy that I fall asleep playing it.
Wow, you know, my favorite part of Persona 5 is when they introduce Kamoshida, and he's a rapist teacher and a creep, and he sexually abuses Shiho, and then she does not commit suicide. She does not attempt to commit suicide.
No,
she just posts along with it for the rest of the game.
No, and then Joker's just like, damn, that sucks, and goes on with his day.
It would be really funny if Persona 5's narrative. It'd be really funny if the first palace you did was Madarame's, and then Kamoshida, you know about the stuff he's doing, but he's just around the school the entire game, and you never do anything about him. He's just sitting there harassing you and the female students.
The game that we're describing, where the characters do not actually experience trauma and do nothing, is not Persona 5, it is just Person 5. And you just live the life of a person.
Person 5, let's go. Boy.
What? Also, yeah, game. I don't know. Sure, game's easy, but it's fun.
Don't worry, I got a better one for you right here from Stixix. Too much filler and mediocre character development. Like I told you, we're really getting to the bottom of the barrel here in terms of detailed responses and what do you mean filler? Like,
what's filler?
Do they mean like the only thing, like when I think of filler, I mean something that, like, I think of something that has like no relevance to the plot. So like, I guess the
only
beach
things I can
scenes
think
in
of are the
P4G.
Hawaii trip and the
Well, no,
the
because
school
that
fest.
even has a purpose. They both have a purpose.
It does, yeah. They both have especially the school festival. But you know, maybe it's just that they're going like, I'm not in a palace right now, so this is not important at all, which is just incorrect.
Yeah, mediocre character. I don't even.
Next one.
Yeah.
Skip.
That
That
was
was
a ton of details
bad
to talk
take.
about.
Yeah. Yeah. Next one's just another thing about them not feeling like.
Yeah,
friends.
we've already had one like this where they just say, yeah, not really a group of friends.
This is an interesting one from Velvet Akira's. Absolutely nothing wrong with them. They're both perfect games.
Mood.
I'll give them the round of applause, but they're wrong. I love these games. I can't say they're perfect. We've given our own criticisms. Like, they're not literally perfect, but
Yeah.
something it's very important to understand is us here, we are defending this game a lot and kind of giving our own takes on it. And it's very much apparent, you guys can speak for yourselves, but at least with me, it is P5 and Royal are both games that are, yes, flawed like any work of art, but the problems for the most part are so minimal and like sparsely put throughout that it doesn't affect my overall experience in the slightest. Like, it's still one of my favorite games. No, it is my favorite game of all time.
Yeah, it is also my favorite game. Yeah, it is my I've heard both of you say this. This is my 11 out of 10 game, and no other game, or at least that I can think of in the future, will ever beat this as an 11 out of 10 game. But it's not perfect.
Yeah,
it has like things that are wrong with it that
it's
could
this
be
and
fixed.
Honey Pop 2, the peak of civilization.
go.
But like, no, I've said it before in these videos. I think Persona 5 Royal is perfect as you could hope for a game of this size and scope to be.
This next one, I had muted this tweet initially, where I'd asked people for responses because I was getting a lot of responses and it started like getting around. I was like, okay, let me wait. But before I muted it, right before, I did see this one, and it made me laugh a little too hard, and I kind of feel bad for it, but not really. From TC Golden, didn't do a whole lot with the dating system. They also gave you some dating options I'm still on. But like the ability to go on dates and not just as a special cutscene, like actually go for walks for something like that, more relationship stuff. Like after you reach rank 10, still go out and do stuff. Don't just leave the cutscene for only Christmas or Valentine's Day or something like that.
You can,
For example,
if you just continue doing the Confidant, you can actually see some stuff.
Basically, they wanted to go on dates with Makoto, as they put it below. And like, you know, I relate. I feel that, but I don't think Persona 5 needed an actual like dating mini game.
Persona 5 is not a dating sim, and if they wanted to make it more of a dating sim, I feel like it would just highlight the fact that there aren't gay options in the game.
Yeah.
So like you can only do these with the girls, and that gives them so much extra content that the guys don't have.
And also, anyone who claims that the Persona series is quote-unquote part dating sim has not played enough dating sims or visual novels to understand what that actually means. Like,
obviously, it's got that dating aspect because, you know, you're a kid, you're 16, and
so it's
you're
Fire
hanging out
Emblem,
with
but
these.
it's not a dating sim.
Yeah, Fire Emblem's on a dating sim, and neither is Persona. It still has that dating sim aspect, but that's
like,
not.
It's just such a minor.
It's not
like,
the genre that it is.
Because anyone who brings up like the dating aspects of the game or whatever, like especially like people say like, oh, it's just pandering to like that quote unquote weeb crowd. I had a conversation about that on Twitter before. I was like, my waifu. It is such a minor part of the game that you literally can ignore it and still complete every Confidant. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it only exists for, all right, you can get a couple extra warm fuzzy scenes with your favorite. And even then, in vanilla P5, that Christmas scene is not warm and fuzzy. So
Yeah.
I keep forgetting that it's like that. It's just like, it's just heart wrenching for the
very
Christmas
sad
scene
that
where you're
the
like,
teammate-
Anyways, I'm
I
sorry,
will say
CC
though,
Golden. No dating.
don't date any of the girls in Persona 5 because they're all garbage. Just hang out with Ryuji every time.
Yeah, that too.
Especially on Valentine's Day.
Dude's a freak.
That Ryuji Valentine's Day scene is peak fiction.
Yep.
They animated it, which makes it canon.
Yep.
From Xiaovault, the whole Psy thing after meeting each confidant got extremely annoying after the initial one with Ryuji. Oh yeah, that's why I added this one, because I did like their example. Imagine you became friends with a chef and Psy just being like, I bet committing these many crimes made you hungry. It would take a world-class chef to keep you fed.
I will say, I can't
no
argue
doubt.
that this is a criticism. Honestly, I think that that's one of the funniest things in Persona 5, is every time you meet a new confidant, Sai is just like, bitch, why did you talk to this person? I can't remember which one is the best one, though. There's one specifically where she slams her fist on the desk and stands up, and she's like, answer me! But I don't remember whose it is.
My favorite one is definitely whenever you're asked who taught you how to use a gun and talking to Shinya. But I think, I don't know, like, to me, I brought it up earlier. I like, it makes every confidant feel important, and apart from the one or two standouts where they were clearly stretching it, I feel like most of them make sense. It's like, yeah, how did you do this as a high school student? You must have needed some cooperation from, like, a teacher to be able to get out of class somehow, and just stuff like that, like, I think most of them make sense. There's just a couple that are, like, kind of a funny stretch where I'm like, all right, that's kind of goofy, but I still enjoy this sort of thing the game does, so...
It also kind of doesn't really make sense for some specific examples. The one I'm thinking of in my head is like when you initiate the EY confidant, and she's like, well, we confiscated these weapons so you're getting weapons from somewhere. Who are you getting the weapons from? There's only one store in the whole town that sells weapons, and they could easily get surveillance footage of any of the party members going in and out of that store. The same could be said for Takemi's. Like, well, clearly you guys would need to have like medicine to keep yourselves healthy. So some of them just do feel kind of dumb, but they are all very funny.
All right, final three, boys. We got some gold ones saved. We got some Persona 4 Goldens saved here. From Juggernaut, Morgana effing sucks, lol.
Thanks for the input. Next. What do you want me to say? We went off on this already.
Yeah,
Honestly,
you've seen the why Adam hates Okumura so much video. You've seen why Adam simps Okumura so much video. You've seen all the rankings. You guys know what these two think about Morgana. I'm in the same boat. Morgana's fine. Stop hating on him. Next question.
I like the funny cat. He's like an annoying little brother, but I love him. From
Stan
Rhyme...
Cassandra Lee Morris.
True.
that too, yeah.
From Rhyme Time, a lot of the antagonists feel like they were rushed at the last second. Not like the entire antagonist thing was rushed, but to me it feels like they randomly added in something to ensure you hate the antagonist. Like, can you really hate the literal pedophile who abused all the students in every way possible? I know, why don't I make it so that he drove an innocent young girl to suicide? Can you really hate the art thief who inflicts all his students with a twisted sense of Stockholm Syndrome? I know, let's make it so he watched a woman die so he could steal from her son for profit. And my personal favorite, Ronald McDonald would like to sell his daughter. I do appreciate the way it's worded, but...
Well, because the way I look at it, it's like, okay, sure. Did I need to watch a girl jump off the roof to know Kamachi's a bad person? No, but in terms of the plot, it's what pushes the characters to actually decide to change his heart.
That's the thing. The reason those are the three examples they name, in my opinion, is because the first one is, okay, yeah, after this, let's go after this, because they're still unsure how the metaverse even works. Then, with Yusuke's, they already basically had gone to it, but it was what gave Yusuke the motivation to really see how twisted Madarame was and how little he actually cared about his pupils, even though he kind of did, but it's complicated. He was very exploitative of them. And then it was the thing that gave Haru the willpower to finally say, no, I'm not going to be your puppet. Let's kill you.
Because
Shut up, brother McDonald, you're not my dad!
Because like the extra thing they add, like that they say like that the extra quote unquote thing they add to make them more evil, to me is just like that one. It's a rising of stakes since you already kind of knew a lot about them. So give you that one last thing right before the boss, or at some point to make you really want to fight them. And two, the extra thing is always the thing that is directly affecting the character. Which is what
literally breaks the
It is
camel's back.
always it is always the catalyst that gets the specific party member who is revolving around that dungeon into the action. Like before, specifically talking about the example with Kamoshida. Before that, Joker, Ryuji, and Morgana are already infiltrating the palace because they already want to change Kamoshida's heart. They are already actively doing that. The only thing that changes after Shiho tries to commit suicide is that Ann gets the willpower to then want to also join the team, because before that all she does is get kicked out of the palace and then she goes back in and gets captured.
Mm-hmm. It's also them realizing oh, even if, because they're also scared of like the and then seeing that was kind of, yeah, we need to do this regardless of that risk.
Oh boy, are you ready for the final criticism for Persona 5? This is the last one, and after this, it never again.
Okay.
From S'mores. Overrated.
Fuck.
I don't think we can fight that one.
We can't.
Oh, damn.
We literally cannot argue it because each one of us gave this game 11 out of 10, which is over the rating of 10 out of 10.
Yeah, like when you're right,
we
you're
all
right.
believe that this game is overrated.
Yeah, it's... So...
Man.
I guess, to close this out, game bad? Agree?
Yeah.
Game bad.
Game bad.
I hate it.
Alright, sick. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.